What is going on, everybody? My name is Gunther Bernard, and I'm here to tell you all about the messed up origins of pugs. Did you know that pugs used to be guard dogs? Many years ago, a great ancestor of mine started barking when he noticed an assassin creeping up to his master's tent, to the king's tent, rather. I don't know why I started talking British, but here we are.
What is up, Solo fam? My name is John Solo, and you probably know me as the guy who either ruined or enriched your childhood by sharing the disturbing myths and folktales that your favorite stories were based on. But today, I don't have a story for you. I originally wanted to do the messed up origins of Polyphemus, but the script needs a little more work. So I thought it'd be fun to do something a bit lighter. An episode of Ask Me Anything. This probably comes as a shock to quite a few of you because it's been well over 2 years since I've produced any content like this. But I'll be honest, I did not realize it had been that long. I think because I've been posting video updates to Patreon for the past few years, I had it in my head that I was maintaining my connection with the community and giving you guys all the relevant news that you needed. But that was kind of stupid because a lot of people don't even know I have a Patreon since I almost never promote it, and I've been making some pretty big moves behind the scenes that I know a lot of you would appreciate hearing about. Which brings me to today. I made a community post back in August telling you to ask me any questions you wanted about the channel, folklore, or mythology, and you guys left some pretty great ones that I just want to dive into. Before I do though, let me know if you'd like to see more content like this by sacrificing the like button to the algorithm gods. Would you ever do a behind the scenes video to show us what fully goes into making a video? I would love to do that. I've wanted to for a long time, but honestly, my biggest challenge is how to make me staring at computer screens and books for 60 hours a week somewhat interesting. A lot more goes into the process now since I have a team around me, so it could be fun to not only show how one video is created, but how everything else is managed at the same time. Getting art commissioned, working on the podcast, producing short form content, and the next episode of Featured Folklore. I've just been struggling these past few months to even keep up with my schedule, so the idea of adding an extra project onto that is a little daunting. If you want to see it though, let me know. I can make it happen. Is there a mythology or area of folklore that you would like to explore more of, but since the scope of your channel focuses on influences on pop culture, you don't have much opportunity? Kind of. I would say for the most part, I get to create content about the folklore and mythologies that I'm most interested in. I know a lot of you want me to branch out into new cultures and genres, which I plan to do more through the rest of this year and ever onward, but really, I would say the only topics I'm ever held back from covering are the more niche ones that don't perform as well. For example, I covered the Cyclopean blacksmiths back in July, and I thought it was a great episode. The material was interesting and offered new perspective. I tried some fun new editing tricks to make the visuals more engaging, but here we are 2 months later, and it hasn't cracked 100,000 views yet. Now don't get me wrong, if you're not interested in the topic or entertained by the video, that's fine. Nobody owes me views. That's just a for instance of a subject that I personally was excited to discuss with you, but unfortunately didn't have the same hook as some more pop culture centered topics, which generally people feel an emotional connection to and are more likely to click on. If you could go back in time and be the main character of any Greek myth, which one would you pick and why? It seems like most Greek myths end in tragedy, so I'm not sure I'd pick any. Even Zeus, who probably has more fun than anyone else in the mythos, goes through his fair share of pain and suffering. His children die, his affairs are always found out, there's schemers and usurpers around every corner. He lives a pretty stressful life, and he doesn't have a pug to cuddle with to make it all worth it, so I'm gonna say no one. Do you find that since it's your job that it's hard to simply just enjoy what you're watching anymore? Or is it just normal? This may sound a little corny, but I actually enjoy the movies and shows I watch even more because of what I do. Yes, there is always that underlying pressure of, how can I turn whatever I'm doing and consuming into content for my brand? But I was actually way worse with that way back in the cartoon conspiracy theory days. Back then, I couldn't just watch a movie like Moana and appreciate the story of this young, inexperienced explorer going out on her own and risking her life to save her family and friends, or appreciate the culture that it was inspired by. I was stuck reading between the lines of everything that happened on screen and making wild guesses about how characters are secretly related, or how everything that happened in the story was a dream because the protagonist was knocked unconscious in the first act. Or wait, that character kind of looks like Boo from Monsters, Inc. Could that be because Boo was a generic looking 3-year-old that could have grown up to look like literally anyone? Or is it really Boo? And there's an entire canonical world that no one at Disney has ever spoken about, where all their characters are either the same or related. The second one for sure, right? Don't get me wrong, if you consume that sort of content, that is fine by me. A lot of people just think of those theories as fun, new ways to look at their favorite movies. I was the same way at first. But the amount of time and effort it took to create that content that went into thinking of and writing these theories that at the end of the day I knew were never true, it wasn't fulfilling work at all. What I get to do now, preserve and pass on folklore and mythology, is always fulfilling, even when the views aren't quite what I want them to be. Just waiting for a bedtime series. Your voice is so relaxing. You know, you're not the first person to have said that. I've actually half toyed with the idea of a messed up storytime ASMR because it seems like a lot of folks share that sentiment. At the same time, I'm not crazy about the idea of being lumped in with the same weirdos who seductively whisper into a mic pretending to be your stalker boyfriend or a brain parasite munching on your medulla oblongata.
911. You wanted to call the pigs? For help? I'm gonna get you a juice box and cheese stick because you love cheese sticks.
It looks like you've woken up. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. Your ear hole.
Yes, that content does exist. Really restores your faith in the human race, doesn't it?
Take each strand of cheese and pop it in your mouth.
Did you study to some extent the mythologies and folklore, or does all your knowledge come from your personal research and passion? I have not received any formal training in mythology or folklore. I got a degree in communication studies, which is a college equivalent of a participation trophy. And I have used roughly 0% of what I've learned throughout those 4 very expensive years of my life. Everything I know about mythology and folklore has been self-taught. I've read academic journals, listened to lectures from experts in the fields, and even had great conversations with the academics who helped do the research for the show now. I think I got pretty skilled at teaching myself because I spent the majority of my life not paying attention in class, not necessarily causing trouble, just not paying attention, spacing out, traveling somewhere in imagination land. So when I got home, I'd have to re-go over everything we learned that day on my own so I could do the homework. Having a good memory and high reading comprehension saved my life. So read to your kids. I'm forever thankful that my mom did. I would not be here today if she hadn't. Has there ever been a messed up origin that was too messed up and you decided not to go through with it? I'll be honest with you, Richie. Not really. Usually I think the more messed up the better. There are a few subjects that I've put off covering, not because they're too messed up per se, but rather because they focus on elements that YouTube's bots are going to flag the shit out of, and it's just not worth putting that much energy and time into a project that not only is not going to make money, but is also going to be suppressed, especially when there are dozens of more popular stories that people have been requesting and I know would appreciate seeing them in their sub boxes. An example of a taboo topic I'm talking about would be the messed up mythology of Priapus, the god with the giant penis that never worked. That'd be hilarious and fun to spend a week talking about, but not if YouTube is just gonna flag it and then hide it from the audience that it was meant for. I've always thought the messed up origins of marijuana prohibition would be cool, or the history of cuss words.
Perhaps one of the most interesting words in the English language today is the word
I'd love to bring back the messed up murder series too. All of these ideas are still possible, by the way. I'm not gonna rule out anything. I just need to build a system for content production that doesn't take up so much of my time in order to make these taboo topics viable. What subject/video did you find the easiest and least easiest to produce? That is a great question. After 100+ episodes, it's kind of hard to remember them all, but I think the most challenging episodes are the ones that are based in a lot of history. Like all of these folktales and myths exist in a historical context, but having to recite and describe real historical events is always an exciting obstacle to overcome for someone who is not an expert. John Henry, for instance, was a pretty intense one. The execution of the Romanov family almost gave me an aneurysm. I'm revisiting Pocahontas in a few months, so the pressure is really on to get that one right. It's also pretty intimidating when the source material for whatever I'm discussing is a long story, like the original Mary Poppins book, 101 Dalmatians, The Iron Giant, and Coraline all had quite a bit to them. But at the end of the day, those challenging subjects, the ones I spend months thinking and reading and writing about, are honestly the ones I miss the most and look back on the most fondly. Way more fondly than I look back at some of my easier subjects, like the astrology series. I still had a lot of fun with those, but a year of talking about earth and fire signs had me wishing that a combo of earth and fire would take me from this life. But I think that is as good a question as any to end this video on. Don't be sad though, because this isn't goodbye. It's see you later. I want to get in the habit of making content like this more often because I really miss it. Not just Ask Me Anythings, mind you, but other behind the scenes stuff, like a studio tour or day in the life type shit. I think it would be cool, so if you have any thoughts or suggestions or questions, leave them in a comment down below. Then follow the Messed Up Origins podcast because I'm currently in the process of remastering some of your favorite episodes of Messed Up Origins with new music and sound effects, and I think you'll really love how they're turning out. I'll see you again next week with the usual Messed Up Origins content you all know and love. Until then, my name is John Solo, and don't forget, John shot first.
Take each strand of cheese and
Pop it in your mouth.